Ciao.
Ciao.
Buongiorno.
Buongiorno. Parents' palazzo, like the main nobility of Sanza. So this is one of the very typical alleyways in town, and you're going to see most of these yourself today, not all of them. This is called the Bridge of the Abbey, and it's a very old bridge. Di che anno più o meno? It's like medieval, probably. Small cars to get us there, but it's called the Inghiottitoio, and it's basically one of the points in which water is managed because there's a lot of rainfall in the mountains, and so they basically made a waterway to bring the water to town rather than just let it flow freely. So this is the town viewed from down. That's the same church. There's one of the medieval towers that we will probably also see. And this is, è quella. Okay, so we'll definitely see this one. It's right above the restaurant where we'll be eating. So the funny historical fact is that Carlo Pisacane, who was one of the people who wanted to liberate southern Italy from the nobility in the whole war around the unification of Italy. So the unification was done in 1861. So in the years preceding, there were many skirmishes and fights between rebels who were viewed by the authority as delinquents, but by some of the people as heroes. And then, yeah, the history will decide who's the hero, obviously, and who is the delinquent. The story of this whole unification is that for the simple people, the people who had farming lands, things got worse. They didn't get better, they got worse. Why did they get worse? Because it was a conquest, as he said before. The Savoia fighters came in, and some of the lands, because it was a conquest, some of the lands, ownership transferred to people in the north. And so there was less land owned by simple farmers after the unification than there was before. And so poverty, which was already a problem here, became temporarily worse. So the civil society came quite a time later. And so in that period where everything got worse, there was a mass emigration. They have family in Argentina, in New York, in Texas, in Brazil, and it's the same for every single family in Sanza that is original from before 1860. Good morning and welcome to Sanza, which he will consider his home for a couple of days. He has a lot of friends here and he has a bit of personal history here as well. So we're going to start off our walk going through the Porta Pungente, which is one of the city gates leading into the center of town, the old city gates. So he's going to concentrate not so much on the history, the formal history of the town, which surely the three brothers know a lot better than he does, but he's going to try and give you an impression of how your ancestors would have lived in this town. So before dinner tonight, he's going to show you the documents that demonstrated how all your family relations are connected. So some of the things we won't be able to see is the land, the pieces of land that belonged to the Cozza and Curcio family, which are mostly here below this point of town. So he will show you pictures of those places also when he's showing you the documents before dinner.
Ho girato tutto il mondo ma non saprei dire con chi sono stato, se chiamarmi vagabondo oppure burattino telecomandato. Quante volte mi son chiesto ma perché lo fai, non lo vedi che di amici veri non ne hai, e tra mille delusioni ho cercato sempre di sentirmi su, ma quando canto io sono sincero più che mai, sono contento soltanto in mezzo a tutti voi. quando canto mi scordo di tutti questi guai e quando canto io vivo in mezzo a tutti voi, perché di questa vita mia non voglio farne
Barzelloni era una famiglia, the main palazzos in town, they decided to signpost them and to say who they belonged to at one point. So this belonged to an important family called the Barzelloni. It currently belongs to a Cozzi family. So there is a family connection between the Cozza and the Cozzi because of a transcription. I don't know if it's an error or a conscious choice to change the name. There were reasons sometimes to do that. So in halfway the 18th century, 1750 or thereabouts, there was a census where they counted 4 Cozza brothers. And there are still a number of Cozzi here. Not sure if they're related, but the Cozzi family was most likely one of the branches from those 4 brothers. Reasons why last names change through time. One is basically administrative errors. The other one could be that one branch of the family wanted to distinguish themselves from another branch of the family, and that could be infighting in the family, but it could also be that they took a different level of power and influence in society and did no longer wanted to be associated with their poorer brothers and cousins. And it looks like that might be the case here, where the Cozzi family provided important people to the church and the administration, whereas the Cozza family did not. So there aren't any documents that prove this beyond any doubt at the moment. But so they call this door a pugnato because it has the I don't know how you call these in English actually.
Rivets.
Rivets, yeah. So it's a fortified door. It's all metal. It's quite strong. Rivets. Yeah, the little horseshoe is against the evil eye. We talked about it yesterday, right? Does anybody remember the 3 reasons? La sicurezza.
Sì.
No, era pure perché quando entrava il padrone.
So respect. And it's too heavy, è troppo pesante. Okay, so the census is part of the information that went into catasto, land registry. So basically, the city had never done a census in the 1700s. They just didn't know how. Okay, so the church gave him the Stato delle Anime, which is something that they would do around Easter time. So, and the information that came from that was all of the families of Sanza of that time. So you can imagine from the documents, you can actually imagine how the parish priest would go into every single house for blessing, but also to see who was living there regularly. So, and he would ask a lot of intrusive questions to the families. He would ask if they would have had their communions and their cresima and all the different sacraments that people get throughout their lifetimes. And then he would also write down if they were living in sin. So they would be living together, even have children together without having any marital ceremony being done. And he would, and they would also take note of any births that were had without marriages to go with those births. So, and basically the way the census was done was neighborhood by neighborhood. So there weren't any street names or house numbers. There would be general areas where people. So basically the chunks of neighborhood that he would identify to put people in the census. Oh, that's all right, he's parking. Would be basically where they were in relation to the church of that neighborhood. So he found 4 Cozza families in that census. So Giovanni Nicola, who is your ancestor from the 1700s, and Giuseppe, his brother, were living very close to each other in the same general neighborhood. Okay, so the name that's in there is Piazza San Giovanni, which basically means the San Giovanni neighborhood. Okay, and the other one was in Piazza di San Bartolomeo, which is Bartholomew's, St. Bartholomew. So we're talking 250 years ago, so that we're not going to be able to see which house is which. It's not feasible. So St. Bartholomew was right down there, and San Giovanni was there. So most likely they were all in the general neighborhood between the one church and the other church on this slope. Ah, okay, so the fourth brother had already died by then, and there was, his son was alive, though he was in the census. Oh, you can't see that actually on the census, that he was. Okay, so basically there's another document he found that talks of the ownership of a piece of land, and it belonged to the nephew of the three brothers, Cozza, and so that's how he distilled that the ownership had passed to the next generation.
Like, I took this.
Grazie per averci ospitato.
Oh, you're beautiful. Lei è bellissima.
Però tanto piacere che ho avuto.
This is what their grand uncle, Michele, so is the brother of grandfather Tommaso, who died very young at age 20. Of Anna Felice Curcio, who married a Cozza. Il Cozza era sposata.
La sorella Anna Felice
Anna Felice
aveva sposato Giovanni Cozza.
Giovanni Cozza. This is Sabino Curcio.
Sabino Curcio. Sì. Sì, prozio.
Il prozio in Italian. Great uncle. Because you're all here, but Maria, nobody really knows where she ended up and what happened. So she said both sisters married people from Sanza in the United States, which was a common thing to happen.
1940 che c'era la guerra, mandavano tanta roba in Italia.
So she said, like in the year 1940, there were so many packages coming because they knew that the war here was already arriving, and in the States it wasn't yet. So, okay, so the letters were sent by normal mail, by letter mail.
Mandavano per posta.
You still have letters.
Avete ancora le lettere che sono venute?
C'erano le lettere, c'erano tante cose di mio nonno che aveva mandato, che aveva portato dall'America, perché mio nonno è stato 14 anni in America e poi se n'è venuto in Italia, perché i genitori le avevano detto che le sue figlie erano fidanzate e non c'era possibilità per le sposare. E allora ha scritto a mio nonno dicendo che se poteva mandare qualcosa di soldi per sposare le sorelle a zia Maria e a zia Anna Felice.
So the story about the sisters is that he got a letter, her grandfather who moved to South America got a letter saying, your sisters have to get married, but we don't have enough money for the dowry. And so we need you to send money. And instead he came back. And basically they ended up sending the sisters abroad to the States instead.
Ho lasciato l'America dopo 14 anni.
14 years, Argentina, yeah.
Perché che se doveva sposare le sorelle.
So he couldn't stay there because he needed to come back to make sure his sisters got married well.
Mio nonno le voleva troppo bene le sorelle, le voleva troppo bene. Poi sentendo che in paese erano fidanzate con persone del stesso paese, allora mio nonno ha fatto tutto quello che poteva.
So he said, she said the grandfather loved his sisters so much that he came back for them to make sure that their futures were secure. I think my father, John Cozza, had to pay John to marry me.
Lei pensa che il suo papà ha dovuto pagare al papà di John, un altro Giovanni, per sposare lei. Sì.
Allora,
Doveva sistemare a lei. Sì, sì.
E te ricordi qualcosa, qualcosa di particolare? Quando non è per i medicini.
Poi la mia mamma stava male.
Her mama was not well.
Allora
at one
il
point.
dottore le disse a mio padre, gli disse, tieni qualche persona in America e ti manda questi medicinali perché in Italia non ce ne sono. Che allora si salva tua moglie, se non guarisce non si salva.
So,
E allora
posso tradurre un attimo, perché sennò mi perdo,
No,
scusate. So her mom was not well. At a certain point, the doctor came and he said, "Do you have anybody in the United States that could send you this type of medicine?" Because, and he said it to her dad, to contact whoever he could in the United States for medication, because that medication just did not exist in Italy. E allora hanno mandato?
Allora la zia Maria, che era in America, quando ha ricevuto quella telefonata che telefonava solo per il figlio di posta, allora subito ha mandato, in del giro di 48 ore sono arrivate in medicine dall'America.
So she says that her aunt Maria, the one that we don't know exactly where she ended up in the end, was really quick. She says within 48 hours the medication was here. I don't know how they managed that. Exactly. And she sent it immediately. And because they made a phone call, which was very rare. You didn't just make phone calls in those days. È funzionata la medicina? Sì, it worked.
Faceva i cavatelli, faceva i tagliolini, le zeppole dicevano noi.
Pure le zeppole.
Pastarelle, faceva tutto.
Tutte le pasta. So she made cavatelli, tagliolini, zeppole, all kinds of pasta dishes and bread dishes. Quindi piace il pane?
Il pane, sì.
Buono il pane?
Il
Bread is the
forno.
secret. Bread and pasta, that's the secret. È il segreto.
Impastava a mano, ti ricordi quando impastava il pane?
So she would do it by hand and... Nonna Rosa?
Bellino, capito?
Queste le facevo
So
quando
you all look like this at 92, guys. Both the girls and the boys. Just so know it. It's the zeppole. There's more coming. There's always more. So that's a... Fai prima loro.
I miei 3 figli, mia mamma, mio papà, mio suocero e mia suocera.
So she took care of 3 children, of her mother, of her father, and of both her parents-in-law as well.
Oh my!
She took care of all those people during her lifetime. Philip,
How long you lived here your whole life?
ha sempre vissuto qui dentro a questa casa?
Questa casa l'ha comprata mio padre.
Her father bought this house in 31.
L'ha comprata mio padre, che erano case antiche, le gente antiche, perché ci sono l'archi del pozzo.
This is a very, very old house. It predates her father buying it by many, many, many years, centuries even.
that's good.
Yeah.
Perché prima a Sanza non c'era acqua.
Because before there wasn't any running water in the houses.
I was going to ask that. I like history. You're in the 1920s. Can you tell me one story about one of your grandparents, happy or sad? One story.
C'è una storia particolare sui nonni che può condividere?
Ma i nonni, perché mio nonno è morto giovane.
Ah, her grandfather died very young.
È morto di infarto. È morto giovane. Papà mio, quando è morto
E lei ha conosciuto il nonno?
No, la nonna sì.
Nonno sì?
La nonna sì, ma il nonno
She
no.
never knew her grandfather because he died so young.
Perché suo padre aveva 3 mesi quando è morto.
So her father was only 3 months old when his dad died. Her grandfather.
Sad story.
How old were
Mio nonno,
when they got married? How old?
mio nonno è morto all'età di 50 anni. Con
He was only 50 years old when he had a heart attack and died. Yeah.
Mia nonna poi me la ricordo bene.
Her grandmother she remembers really well. Ha qualche ricordo in particolare sulla nonna?
Parecchie cose.
Sì, era una signora, faceva le coccole, che faceva la nonna? Sì, she was a very, she loved giving hugs, the nonna.
Taught you many things. I bet she taught you many things.
Ha insegnato qualche cosa a lei, la nonna?
Tradition.
Parecchie cose mi insegnava, pure cose per cucinare.
Ah, to cook and how to do things in the house, yeah. When she got married, her father was 50.
But how old was she?
Ah, e lei a quanti anni è sposata?
23.
She was 23.
Okay, great. And your mother? How old was
Mia
she?
E la mamma quando si sposò, quanti anni aveva? Era giovane?
Nonno è tua nonna, quando è che vive?
Papà aveva 23 anni quando è sposato, pure all'età mia. E poi la mamma era un po' prima.
Un po' più giovane?
25.
Ah, so her mother was 2 years older than her dad. Her dad was 23 and her mom was 25 when they got married. I would love to come visit because my English is pretty good so we can talk, but it's a little bit expensive. Acqua qui. So, nel 31?
Mia nonna era entusiasmata perché c'era il pozzo e doveva comprare questa casa.
Ah, so her grandfather bought this house because it has its own well right there. And having a well in those days was super important because it means you had fresh water that was safe to drink, which was a luxury. And it took until 1931 for water to actually be brought to the town because at some point an engineer came to town and saw all the problems that they had because of the lack of fresh drinking water. And so he started a project to bring the water from the mountain into the town. Fresh water is one of the most important things for hygiene, for safety. And so this house was a real luxury in town to have your own well that was safe to drink. Grazie per questa storia.
Io mi vogliono tutti bene.
Ma sì, ma certo che guarda tutte ste facce belline che vogliono bene a lei, guarda, loro è la nuova generazione, hanno 30 anni più o meno, sono 3 sorelle e una cugina.
Come mia nipote.
Sì, esatto, dov'è stessa età, you're the same age group as, like, around 30-ish.
E
Hai visto tutta sta gioventù qui a casa? All this youth in the house.
Tengo 5 nipoti.
5.
4 uomini e una femmina.
She has 4 grandchildren. No, 5 nipoti. 4 boys and 1 girl she has.
Ce n'è uno che sta in Olanda.
There's one in Holland. Ireland, sorry. Misheard that.
Ha studiato ed ha trovato lavoro.
He studied there and then he found a job there. He's in Dublin.
Ha detto sempre, pure poco sera fa che mi dio la cucina 92 anni. Magari se fosse stato io a Sanza ti mi ha tanto piacere, conosce pure i parenti.
He was really sorry that he couldn't come because he wanted to know his family from the States, but
paese, un piccolo presente, non è niente di che, però è un ricordino per ognuno di loro. Mo non lo so, però siccome sono diversi, magari se li scambiano tra loro, se piace.
Aspetto solo un secondo per dirglielo, va bene?
Permission to kiss her hand.
Ah, permesso di baciare la manina?
And then on the face now.
Both sides.
Rosa. Bye. It's okay. Thank you.
All right. Well done, guys. Well done. Tutti quanti. Tutti i cugini.
Allora questa signora è sorella Marco.
Paese, un piccolo presente, non è niente di che, però è un ricordino per ognuno di loro. Mo non lo so, però siccome sono diversi, magari se li scambiano tra loro, se piace.
Scusami Andrea, sì, stavo... We cute the lady, we cute the lady. So the prison that we've been talking about is actually that building. This was the men's prison though. The women's prison is on the other end of this. Okay, so as far as we know, because it's been switched around a couple of times, which was the guys, which was the girls' prison. On the other side, there's nothing left of it. This is the latest, the only remaining part of the prison is this. We'll just show you where it used to be. But
Who's in jail?
okay, so who was in jail? Chi era in prigione? Serafina Ciorceri, who was Giovanni Cozza's mother, was in prison, and she had Sabino there, who is related to the three. So the bars that you see on the window there are the original bars of the prison, and they would have been the same on each side, regardless of whether it was the guys' prison or the women's prison.
Is there a record of why she was in prison? What her offense?
Unfortunately, we don't know. So it might have been petty crime, might have been political, it might have been anything. We don't know. It might have been a debt, might have been financial, might have been anything. We don't really know. So this is the Church of Santa Maria Assunta
Piazza del Plebiscito.
in Piazza del Plebiscito. It's the mother church of Sanza. So there's two statues, main statues inside the church. La Madonna della Neve that we'll be discussing, and San Sabino, who is the patron saint of Sanza. So the night between the 25th and the 26th of July, so during that night at 3 o'clock in the morning, there is first a Holy Mass that's said here, and then the Madonna della Neve gets wrapped safely and then taken onto a procession to the point where she will start to make her way up the mountain. Okay, so during the procession she's still visible, and then before she gets hauled up the mountain, they put her in a protective casing because it's a rough road, and in case anything happens, they wouldn't want the Madonna to break. So the night between the 4th and the 5th of August, they do the opposite movement. So they bring her back from the sanctuary on the mountain all the way back to Sanza with the procession into the church. Okay, so the part that happens here is quite solemn, quite silent. There will be prayers, there will be songs for the Madonna, and they will quietly make their way to the departure point up the mountain that is outside the town. So this church is the heart, the center of Sanza's community life. So in the very beginning, when Sanza was founded, this was the center of Sanza. Right now, there are other churches that are outside towards the city limits that are also parish churches. But when things began here, this was the place where people gathered. This was community life right here. What they call the mother church. So there were other churches where people would go that were nearby their houses, but this was the main church, the mother of all churches in Sanza. So from an architectural point of view, the church was expanded together with the growing number of people that were settling here in Sanza. So the oldest part of the church is here to our left, to your right. that has the Jesus figure, and that was already there in between 1000 and 1100 after Christ. So until the 1500s, that was the main part of the church. So this part where we are now is actually built after 1500 to accommodate the growing number of people wanting to visit the church. Okay, so his hypothesis is that there were chapels on both sides of the original church. It's nothing that he has any written proof for. There are no documents testifying to it. So what we do know is that until the 1930s, that on that site there were several chapels, and those are documented. So the reason he thinks that there were more chapels than just the ones on that side is that there are so many statues that were in this church that they couldn't have all been provided by those chapels. So a complete transformation of this church was made in the early 1900s. So it became structurally unsound, and so something had to be done. So they actually had to redig the foundations of the church about 100 years ago. Okay, so there's a crypt underneath this floor. This floor is from 1933, so 1933. But there's still a crypt underneath. So until the Napoleon rules, basically, in 1803, all churches were also cemeteries. There were places where people got buried. That stopped. So there are still many people buried underneath this church, many bones there. It's not specific to Sanza. This is true for all Roman churches all over Italy. So when Napoleon conquered these lands, basically, and it stated his laws, the French laws, all cemeteries were then moved outside the city centers, outside the city walls. So from an artistic point of view, the oldest and most important sculpture is the crucifix. So it's from the 1400s. So there's a local artist, Sabino Peluso, who provided much of the sculpture work in wood for the statues that are in this church. We're talking about 1740 approximately. So it's the Immacolata there, the Assunta over here,
San Pietro,
Saint Peter. So in the niche on the side there, there's already also a Mary Magdalene that is very characteristic, which is from 1400s. So once an artist who came here explained to the priest that the age of a sculpture, a religious sculpture, can be discerned by looking at the eyes. So up until the 1500s, the eyes were painted on. So after the 1500s, people used to use glass discs, basically, to denote the eyes. And after that, they were actually sculpted as a shape onto the wood, which was not previously the case. So now you can see that they have an actual oval shape, as a real eyeball has. So if you're curious about when a sculpture is from, like it's before 1500 or after, or if it's modern, look at the eyes. So some of the statues, however, have been redone, but only the eyes, to make them look more lively and more modern, an actual sculpture. In this church, you will also find pieces of art that were previously in other churches. So there's been a migration of artwork into this church. So the stone statues that you see on this side were actually not originally in this church. So they don't belong to this church, is what he says. So this is, again, the Pietra di Padula, the Padula stone that's very common in this area. So I don't know if you remember in Sala Consilina, the doorway with the flamey tongues that look like a mustache. Same guy that did the gate of the Certosa, same guy that did the sculpture. His name is Andrea Carrara. So on the road from Sanza to Buonabitacolo, which is basically the road we might be doing, I think we'll be doing it tomorrow on the way back, there is a cemetery, and above the cemetery is a hermitage. So in this house that belonged to a very rich gentleman who decided that he was going to draw back from society and live there, there are Joseph, thank you, Peter and Paul. Same as these three. So those statues were then brought here to this church. So these are the same statues. Okay. So, and the altar that was present there has been brought to the Church of Saint Vito, which is also in Sanza. And the tabernacle was brought to Saint Francis Church, also in Sanza. So all those pieces that are very rich artistically were brought to different churches in Sanza. The lector, okay, so this is the most recent piece that was added to the church, and it's very recent, just a couple of years ago. It's actually July this year, and it's they often dedicate it to a person who has passed away. It's made in wood, and it's from a local artist here in Sanza. So the pulpit is from 1950, and it was made by an artist from Sassano. So the woodwork, the reliefs that you see here are the heart of Jesus. The other two I forget, but I hope he doesn't notice. And then, there's the four evangelists on the doorway, because I guess you go up the stairs behind it and then you step into the pulpit from behind. Ego sum veritas et vita. I am the truth and life. Ego sum veritas et vita. From the Evangelo, which is basically from the Bible. So Michela's asking about the organ. So this organ is actually made during the Second World War in Germany, but there wasn't any organ between when the old organ was destroyed by lightning, interesting, and 2018 when this one was donated to the church, and there was actually an electrical organ when he arrived in the 1990s.
Io mi fido di te.
I'm telling him that I'm just telling a bullshit story, but because he doesn't know the difference anyway. No, but this is what he said, seriously. So he came here in the 90s, found this electrical thing, and in 2018 they got this donation. It's a second-hand organ made during the Second World War in Germany and donated to this church in 2018. So even though this church is dedicated to La Madonna Assunta officially, the strongest movement here is about the Madonna della Neve. It's the thing that makes people's hearts beat faster. So until 1857, the year that Pisacane died here, I don't know if that's a coincidence, the Madonna della Neve was always in the sanctuaries, was always on the mountain. All year round, she was just on that mountain. So only in case of real calamities would they get her from the mountain and drag her back to this church. So if people were doing this movement to get the Madonna from the mountain, the town would basically be left defenseless. And so she was taken almost by force, you could say, and brought back to the village. So now it stays here for almost a whole year round inside this church, except for the week or 10 days between the movements that we know about. So 26th of July until 5th of August. Yeah. And so they take the Madonna, they put it in a protective casing that's called the stipa, and they bring her to the sanctuary for that period of time. So the statue, including the throne, because I don't know if you've seen this, but she's on a throne, and it's just one massive sculpture. It used to be massive in the sense that it was not hollow, and they actually took some of the wood out from underneath, so the throne is partly hollow. It's still quite heavy. It's got to be at least 100 kilos of weight on those shoulders, and probably more. Yeah. So in terms of library or archive, if you will, he's been the parish priest here for over 30 years, and he found poco e niente, which means precious little. So with all the work that's been done on this church, every time people were working on this church, the documents got dispersed and not all of them came back, and so a lot got lost. So one of the great palazzos in this town actually contains currently a lot of documents pertaining to marriages, baptisms, and deaths. So a lot of the archive pieces that people like Michele would need to do research are actually not here where they should be, but they are in a palazzo in town. So one of the things that he did as a parish priest is to try and obtain at least copies of all the stuff that was not here so that he could reconstruct somehow the archives. So the oldest book that they have, which is an original, is from 1640 or thereabouts. It's a baptismal archive book, so it's a register of baptisms. So we're going to go into the sacristy, and he's going to show you a fresco on the wall that's been rediscovered, if you will, with the restoration work that was done pretty recently.
Where would a bride and groom have stood in 1868? Giovanni is born.
So this is the presbyteria, they call it, and it's reserved for people who are of the religious profession, so priest or... So they would have been in front of that. So in the modern churches, these barriers no longer exist. So the reason that this is actually over the barriers because he's not allowed to take this off. He would love to take this off and make it a more open space because he doesn't like that separation. So anything that's over 50 years old cannot be taken away from the church. So they would have been standing here. Yes, that's the answer to your question. I'm sorry. So in those days, there would have been more than one priest present at a wedding. And so they would be standing here, and there would be like a bunch of them over there. The altar was much more to this area. It was much closer. The altar, the big one that's over there against the wall, was right here in the middle. So I don't know if anybody knows this, but in the Catholic churches, there was the priest. So the priest would have been with their shoulders, with their backs to the people, and so 1960 that all changed because they modernized the Mass. It became Italian, and it became more open in the sense that the priest was supposed to look at the people he was preaching against. So there weren't any seats here. It wasn't like that. So who was able would bring their seat from their house, for their chair. So the rich people would have their seats already in the church, and they would like chain them up so that nobody would take them, and there was like reserved seating for them. It's like the VIP lounge version of church, I guess. Who didn't want to haul their chair from their house? You basically had to stand on their feet. So people who are now very old still remember the day when they were still either bringing chairs or standing. So the reason there are so many pillars in the church is because people needed to lean. Yeah.
So they've been high-back chairs, too.
Exactly. So basically in 2019, they decided to do a restoration project on the church, on the inside of the church. And when they started to prepare this room to have it painted, they discovered a little bit of red when they were cleaning. And they were like, ooh, that's interesting. They stopped all the work and they started to sort of see where that would lead them. So his COVID project, if you will, because he couldn't go anywhere, couldn't go out, he couldn't have people in church for the most part. Like little by little, he just started cleaning that space out, and just to see where the edge were. So with a surgeon's knife, he started to scratch very carefully, a scalpel. He started to scratch very carefully at the surface, bit by bit by bit.
Who did it, or what?
What it represents?
Right.
I can see it's a Jesus on the cross. This is the scalpel that did that. All right, just so you know, this is the one. So there's actually 3 paintings there. The first one, so if you see the dark red framework around it, you're getting a pop quiz about all of this. Okay, so 1700 is the black frame that contains the main picture that you see. It's Jesus on the cross. So according to the medieval tradition, Jesus is buried, and so you can see a skull there with the bones, and behind it you can see Jerusalem with the round couple roof. Yeah, how do you say cupola? Dome. Okay, so you can see the writing of INRI, which is on mother, Mary, who is crying. Okay, so the white thing you see is actually a cloth, and she's crying into it. And so you can see at his feet, you can see the Magdalene. She's in profile with the hair to the left and the profile to the right. And on the right-hand side, you can just make out a face that might be John, the Apostle. Underneath the arches, you can see, underneath that arch, you can see a blue color. And so there's likely something is there. You pull out a book and the door opens now.
Cue the door.
All right.
Questo è il più antico che abbiamo.
So this is the very oldest volume that they have in the archive.
Questo è il 1671, 1706.
So this is late 1600, early 1700 is the period of this volume. So these will be baptismal records. It's all... È italiano o è latino là dentro?
Latino.
This is in Latin. And depending on the quality of the paper, you might be actually reading what's on the back as well. So it gets really difficult, gets really messy. So here's an example of what we talked about earlier, that somebody would be identified as a mastro, which means that he was a artisanal master of something, but we don't know if he was a shoemaker or a carpenter or a smith or whatever. And it's funny, I don't know if any of you can see this, but here the handwriting changes. So it's probably a new...
Bortone, Ciorcia.
È un nuovo prete?
Sì, probabilmente perché è cambiata la scrittura.
So they would just continue where the old priest left off.
Collaterali, vi benedica Dio Onnipotente, Padre e Figlio e Spirito Santo. Amen. E nel nome del Signore andate in pace.
Flour steak. No, quello è dolce. Hello, guys. Hello. 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 Hola. Hello. Hola. Foggia. Foggia. La G o la C quella? È una C. La G. Foggia.
Stefano, sì. Ma Sanza
Cozza, viva! Family.
Cozza! Sanza!
Se c'era un rino, cazzo facevo buffone allora.
Ok.
It's on the wrist.
Benissimo! Bravo!
Lo scassinatore.
Marco will do it. No, it's just later.
Ghost.
Oh, yeah. Oh, stands up. Oh, no.
is a great grandmother's and future house that she was growing up.
Hello everyone, I'm Juicy, you know who I am. Thank you for being here, for enjoying the tour with us. I'm going to talk about the museum, our services, what we do, and talk a little bit about how it began and what Michela did over the years to catch the attention people around the world. Museo del Cognome. Are you wondering why Museo del Cognome? Museo del Cognome is a family history museum. It was born 11 years ago from the idea of Michele Cartuscello, you know him. And after a year, the only picture where it properly... yeah, you got it. Okay. And he decided to start this business 11 years ago in April 2012. After years in a different ambit, restaurant ambit. The museum was a restaurant actually. And he decided to turn his passion about genealogy into a job. And 1 year later, I joined the team as manager in foreign relations, as everything. I deal with everything. The museum is based on the ground floor of an old building in the old town center of Padula. At the top of the old town, we are not far from the mother church and the town hall. And the museum is everything. It's a museum, it's an office, a kind of school, one of a kind of place in the world about genealogy. We welcome visitors when they step into our office and teach them how a genealogical research works. We are in touch with people all over the world. When they ask for information, they need help, our assistance in figure out any information about the ancestors. And we deal with many things, with family history, genealogy lesson, and with ancestors too. This is one of the services we are most proud of, and why we are working a lot with ancestors too. And we are building bridges between cultures with people from all over the world. And we try to connect people who never got in touch, who never met in the whole life. As happened when, just an example, with Mark, last year he got in touch with us and he came here. We talk a lot about the family, his dream to connect and to put together all the pieces of the puzzle. And it's just one of the stories of the museum. And what else we do? We build family trees. There are different kinds of family trees. One of these is the classic family tree, the family line. The family line is about the last name. I give you an example. I start with the oldest ancestor, the roots, from where everything begins. Then I go up until I got to the latest descendant. Then we have the ancestor chart. We have both the maternal and the paternal line. And the descendant chart, we start from the oldest ancestor and we figure out marriage, kids, marriage kids, until we got to actual days. Yeah, this is another surface we are proud of. It's a different way to build your family tree. Over the years, we try to catch the attention of young people. You know, genealogy is not so. It's not so interesting in Italy. It's not an ambit people is interested in. So we try to turn this topic into something more attractive, and we try to build different family tree. One of these is the ancestry comic book. Michele started with this family history, and the other one is a family novel. The family novel is one of the best family tree you can have. We have an example with our client, our friend. 5 years ago, he decided to get in touch with us and to give his father a Christmas gift. It was a nice story to tell. We worked very hard. In 3 months, we wrote a novel. We got in touch with our cartoonist, illustrator, everything, and I translated everything. And during the Christmas Eve, we gave via email everything to our clients, and he stayed with or gathered around the table like you now, like you are now here, and they read the book page by page, and going back to the oldest ancestor. The sad story is that after 3 months we gave him this novel, he died. But we were able to help him to reconnect with his brother. So his son did this to keep the family united, you know, keep the family around the table, discuss, enjoy moments that they will never have in the future. And these family shoes, Michele, and I think you can see this. It's not our mail service. It's a service we offer in collaboration with a guy from Caselle in Pittari, Giuseppe Gepis Rivello. Michele decided to get his customized shoes with his ancestor names put on it. And why shoe? Why the shoes? Because they, family, parents walk together. All the ancestors, all the family were they together. So it's like walking, rewalking, find again, living once again the story of the family. Why do you need to hire us? Because we are all family. Over the years, Michele catch the attention of some people, and I started to work with him 10 years ago. And then other guys, girls like Francesca, Astrid, Carmen, Nicola, Giovanna, Viviana, Emanuele, and many, many more friends. We are all friends. We are all family. Our reward, our prize for all the job, all the efforts in this museum, in this job is your faces, your joy, your happiness when you come here. The moments we share with you, your tears, when we see your faces, when we get emotional with you, when we share your stories, when we listen to you, when you tell us about your family, as we are all a big, big family. There are no distance. So I think that Michele reached the goal, put everyone and everything together. And we hope that the things are going to grow, and that museum can see and welcome other visitors from all over the world, around the world. We are so proud, we are so happy when we meet people, sharing cultures, giving the chance to dive into the past, walk into our ancestor footsteps, reading, scrolling the page of old books, to let them live again. It's so emotional for us too. It's just not a matter of job or dates or numbers. They are faces, they are emotions. So I feel emotional right now telling this story because I'm moving in 10 days. So I'm really, really proud and happy and being here with him and sharing all these years with all the team on the museum, with all the other members. So we are our family. We are all cousins. There's nothing to tell about anything else. As you can see, the logo of the museum, the roots, it's an hand holding the word. So we are trying to hold the stories and welcome all our friends there. You are not a client anymore, a simple customer. You turn into a friend. We keep in touch. Christmas, other holidays become more important than ever. So the reason why we are still working hard is that we need to attract and involve many other people in this ambit. Genealogy is not just a matter of numbers, as I said before. We are people, and we can make a relationship different. When we can build bridges, we can stop being distant. Everything is connected. So you know how to get in touch with us. You have our mobile, our email, but you can check our website if you need to learn more about our services. If you have any questions right now, you can ask me, or I let Michele speak about your family investigation, how we worked, what he figured out. So I will help him to translate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Ti devo ringraziare, hai detto cose buone.
Sì.
Diglielo. Che ti ringrazio.
So Michele said that do you tell them good things? I'm sure.
Cozza nel 1741 a Sanza.
This is a Stato delle Anime census dated 1741. And it's about the first family Cozza in Sanza.
Allora, Giovanni Nicola.
Giovanni Nicola, the first one.
Di anni 64.
64 years old.
Isabella, non c'è nemmeno il cognome, quindi poca considerazione verso la donna.
Isabella was the wife, but we don't know her last name. We don't know why.
Anni.
68 years old.
Caterina, Marino, Alessio, Biagio.
Caterina, Marino, Alessio and Biagio
Sono i figli.
were the kids. the children.
Alessio è il loro antenano diretto.
Alessio is your ancestor, your ancestor.
I primi 4, questa sigla che c'è davanti, significa che erano cresimati, confessati e comunicati.
As you can see, there is a kind of abbreviation, CH.C. It means that they got all the sacraments, so baptism, confirmation.
Allora, Giovanni Nicola diventa Giovanni perché evidentemente al battesimo era Giovanni Nicola, perché quello lì era della chiesa, questo è del comune.
Okay. Questo è il catasto onciario, giusto?
Sì.
This is the catasto onciario census. Here Giovanni Nicola turns to Giovanni, so I lost his middle name. Have you ever heard about the catasto onciario census? It's a census with the family and the property of the household.
In effetti è la stessa situazione di prima, soltanto che in ordine diverso e anche l'età è un po' diversa, ma si tratta cioè non era riferito al compleanno, ma era riferito semplicemente all'età che dichiaravano.
The same family in a different order. Giovanni, Isabella, Marino, Alessio, Biase, Caterina. There was just difference of age. They put all the males first and then the female.
Allora, Giovanni era un bracciale, quindi un bracciante, lavoratore alla giornata.
Bracciale means laborer, daily laborer, like a kind of peasant.
Un figlio era massaro, quindi gestiva la fattoria dove lavorava.
Marino was a massaro. Massaro was a kind of farm guardian.
Alessio era un custode di capre.
And Alessio was a good shepherd.
E invece Biagio era un custode di neri. I neri sono i maiali neri.
And Biase was the shepherd of Neri means specific kind of pigs, they're black pigs.
Caterina era una vergine in capillis, che significa che le ragazze che ancora non erano sposate, quindi teoricamente non avevano avuto rapporti, non potevano sciogliere i capelli, perciò si chiamavano vergini in capillis, perché portavano i capelli legati.
And Caterina was a virgin in capillis. She wasn't married yet, so she had to put all the hair together and did cut the hair until she got married.
Allora, sotto c'è praticamente tutto quello che possedeva questa famiglia. Leggo solo un rigo per evitare di
At the bottom of the census.
Allora, possiede ali campi la corte Tomola 2 di terra con vita e seminata, confinante col magnifico Liborio Peluso, Domenico Scalzo e Flavia Donofrio. Cioè questi avevano diciamo 4 ettari di terreno, 3 ettari e mezzo di terreno, di viti e di seminato.
There is the description in details of the land property they have.
I numeri al lato sono la rendita che davano i campi.
They have olives and vineyard properties at the border with someone else, and the place where was La Corte.
E poi in Agno è un altro terreno,
In
un'altra
Agno
zona di Sanza.
is a different area of Sanza, and they had a different. It's a different place located in Sanza.
Allora, io ho fatto un po' di foto. Le foto sono state fatte più o meno da dove, alcune da dove si sono fermati, da dove ci siamo ritrovati tutti quanti stamattina, dove era il serbatoio dell'acqua praticamente, e altre proprio dal posto. Queste sono foto di varie zone di Sanza che loro non hanno potuto visitare per una questione di tempo, insomma. Questa è sempre la zona Agno, che è una zona molto molto vasta.
This picture are about the Agno area. We're taking some time ago. You didn't have the chance to visit these places, but we are going. We are showing them now, and to let you see the area where your ancestor Cozza owned the property.
Questo è il nostro terreno che si chiama Campo La Corte e quando noi torneremo da qua, loro quando vedranno il paese, quella zona lì, prima di arrivare in paese, si chiama Campo La Corte.
Okay, La Corte is right before getting to the town. Maybe you can see it when we leave and back to Padula, go back to Padula.
Sanza.
Sì, sì, prima di arrivare a Padula, sì.
No, prima
Sì.
di arrivare a Sanza, questo è Sanza.
Sì, quando andiamo verso Padula, ho detto.
No, quando da qua andiamo verso
Oh,
Sanza.
Okay. You are going to see this area when we leave from here and get to Sanza.
Questa è sempre un'altra zona. È la strada che porta alle Tempe, un'altra zona dove avevano dei terreni i Cozza, ma in più
The Tempe area,
anche i Curcio e Mario mi spiegava che questo pozzo adesso è asciutto, però era quello con cui loro raccoglievano l'acqua per irrigare questi
Where
campi.
the Cozza family and also Cuccio family had some properties and some water, like some places where they got the water to take care of the properties.
Allora. Questa è la pagina completa dello Storia delle Anime che abbiamo visto prima e qua vediamo, io stamattina gli ho spiegato che sullo Storia delle Anime sono 4 famiglie Cozza, non ce ne sono altre, sono 3 fratelli e un figlio di un altro fratello morto, quindi in totale erano 4 fratelli, 2 stavano vicino,
4 famiglie Cozza.
Giuseppe e Giovanni Nicola.
Okay, this is the Stato delle Anime census, the whole page of the book. It's dated 1741, and Michele figured out only 4 Cozza families. 2 of these families live close. Mi dici i nomi, per favore?
Giuseppe
Cozza,
Orsola la moglie,
Orsola,
Maria, Tommaso,
Domenico,
Caterina e
Elisabetta. Ok.
Poi questa è quella che abbiamo visto prima.
Okay.
Questo è il terzo fratello, Antonio.
Another brother, Antonio, lives somewhere else in a different neighborhood.
Ecco.
With his wife.
Antonio.
Lavinia, the wife.
Lavinia moglie, Paolo
and son,
Carmine, Lorenzo, Agata, Maria, Silvestro, Rosa e Nicola.
All these names are about their kids. So from Paolo to Nicola, all kids born to this couple, Antonio and Lavinia.
Allora, ci sarebbe da fare altre ricerche, ma probabilmente Silvestro è quello che dà origine ai Cozzi.
Maybe we need to deepen the investigation to figure out something more, but Michele supposes that Silvestro is the one who gave the roots to the Cozzi family, different from Cozza family.
Questa è la zona di San Bartolomeo che noi non abbiamo visto,
This-
ma gliel'ho indicata perché era la zona dove tra San Bartolomeo e San Giovanni vivevano le famiglie
This is
Cozza.
the San Bartolomeo neighborhood. They didn't get a chance to show you, but this is the area where the family Cozza, your family Cozza, lived in the past.
Questo invece è San Giovanni dove noi poi abbiamo fatto la foto.
This is San
di
Giovanni
gruppo, dove
neighborhood,
c'è l'ulivo.
where you took a picture all together, and there was an olive. There is an olive tree.
Ok. Allora, questo qua è il documento, diciamo uno dei documenti più importanti, perché ci sono Giovanni, Antonio e Giuseppe, che sono tre fratelli che hanno terreni in varie zone, tra cui Gattapuni e Tempe, che sono altre zone di Sanza.
This is one of the most important records we figure out, where listed the three brothers, Giovanni, Giuseppe, and Antonio, and their properties, their goods.
Ma in particolar modo questo. Perché qua ci dice: Sabato Cozza possiede alle Tempe unitamente con Antonio, Giovanni, Giuseppe Cozza, suoi zii.
This record is important too because it says that Sabato Cozza owned at the Tempe neighborhood, together with Antonio, Giovanni e Giuseppe Cozza, his uncles.
Quindi
So
questo è
it's
il documento che ci fa capire che era un'unica famiglia.
This
Quindi
record
tre fratelli e un nipote.
help us to figure out that there was only a Cozza family here in Sanza.
Vabbè, questa è la casa che siete andati a vedere, in effetti, che è la casa dove sono nati Anna Felicia e Sabino.
This is the house where Anna Felicia and Sabino were born. So. Yeah.
Scendiamo e arriviamo a Giovanni Cozza e troviamo anche, io ho trovato dei documenti che loro non credo conoscano.
Michele figured out some American records. When Giuseppe Cozza got to the USA in 1887.
Allora.
Giuseppe o Giovanni?
Allora, sai perché non può essere Giovanni? Perché Giuseppe Cozza è C Cozza, cioè C sta per Caterina Scelza, che era la moglie di Giuseppe.
It's Giuseppe Cozza, not Giovanni, because Giuseppe moved together with his wife.
Perché se no altrimenti qui avremmo trovato o A di Anna Felicia o F solo Felicia.
If you think it was Giovanni there would be A or another.
Serafina S. Ciorciari, che è più grande, infatti 55.
Serafina
Allora,
Ciorciari.
allora, secondo la mia ipotesi, loro tre sono partiti insieme, ma probabilmente hanno raggiunto Giovanni. Cioè Giovanni è andato prima, la madre era rimasta sola con l'altro figlio e con la moglie e sono partiti insieme per raggiungere Giovanni. È ovvio che questa è un'ipotesi perché non sono riuscito a trovare l'atto di imbarco di Giovanni.
Michele, this is just a supposition. Michele thought that Giuseppe, his wife, and along with Ciorciari went to the USA to meet Giovanni. Maybe he was already there, but we couldn't figure out his arrival record, the passenger list. This is an American
allora,
census.
questo è il censimento del 1900.
It's the 1900s American census.
Dove c'è Cozza Giovanni,
We can see Cozza Giovanni together with
Felicia la moglie,
Felicia,
Frank,
his wife, Frank.
Mike, vabbè questo credo che
Mike.
lo conoscano. Ma soprattutto qui 1888 dovrebbe essere l'anno di quando... Allora, eccolo qua. 1888 è l'anno di emigrazione, però in un altro censimento è 1887, ma questi sono errori che sono tipici.
This census lists as immigration date 1888. Maybe it's a mistake. It 88. Qual è questo qua?
Sì.
Ok, ok, sì. 1888.
Allora, c'è uno di loro che mi ha fatto vedere dei documenti che risulta che loro sono partiti a fine 1887, a novembre se non sbaglio.
Someone of you showed Michele some records that list Cozza family moved there in 1887.
È un documento italiano che non
It's
so chi
an
di loro me l'ha
Italian
fatto vedere
record.
quando eravamo a Villa Cosilinum.
Okay, and someone showed these records last Saturday when we were at Villa Cosilinum.
Allora, giusto per farvi vedere, mi fa piacere farvi vedere qualche foto antica di Sanza.
It's a black and white picture about Sanza.
Cioè, questa è la foto di quando hanno costruito il serbatoio nel 1931. Non so se vi ricordate, 1931
This is the
serbatoio.
picture is about when they start to build the serbatoio in 1931.
Questa è una foto di Sanza presa dall'altro lato.
This is a picture of Sansa taken on the other side.
Cioè,
Okay.
quando uno va via da qua, come vede Sanza dalla via
Okay,
di...
this picture, okay. It's always about Sansa. On the other side, you can see it when we leave.
E questa invece è la foto di dove hanno preso l'autobus, dove li ha lasciati l'autobus stamattina praticamente.
And this the picture is about the place where you, where the bus left you in.
Come posso vedere c'erano molte meno case prima, considerate che vabbè, questa foto sarà di fine 800 insomma.
Late 1800s.
Però tutta la popolazione era in paese, non è come adesso tutte le case che ci sono
As
in
you can
Campania.
see, there were no, there were many buildings. All the people live in old town. Now it's totally different.
Diciamo che con questi documenti vi ho dimostrato che effettivamente si possono scoprire tante cose sulla famiglia, ma se ne potrebbero scoprire tante altre ricercando ancora, ma ci vuole sia tempo che fortuna.
Because I said that thanks to these records, we were able to show something about family. But if we want and if we are lucky and we have time, we can find even more about the family. This is the connection between the Stefano and Cozza families.
Giovanni Cozza a sua volta era figlio di Francesco Nicola, che era figlio di Alessio.
Giovanni Cozza was born to Giovanni.
Era figlio di Francesco Nicola.
Giovanni
che a sua
Cozza was
volta-
born to Francesco Nicola, that was born to Alessio.
Che a sua volta era figlio di Alessio, che fa sì che ci sia l'altra parentela con Michele Conforto,
And
che,
this
che non so,
connect
qualcuno l'ha conosciuto già forse.
and this connect to Cozza family with the Conforto family.
Allora adesso Giusy vi leggerà una parte, non lo leggiamo tutto secondo me, del testamento che abbiamo trovato di Giovanni Cozza, dove lascia la maggior parte delle cose ad Alessio, perché Giuseppe ha avuto già parte dell'eredità quando si era sposato.
Okay, we are going to read the will Giovanni Cozza left It's dated 1842. It's an interesting record where that help us to figure out what Giovanni Cozza left to the son, one of the son, not two, because one of them already left early the family.
Dove ce l'hai il testamento?
Lì? Ok. Lo vuoi mostrare pure dalla
Che cosa?
la foto del documento?
Dov'è? Ce l'abbiamo?
Nella cappella, sì.
Non penso. Guarda, aspetta. Quale?
No, giù.
Questa qua?
L'hai messa tu. Questa. This is a 4-page will. That Giovanni Cozza, sono Alessio, want to leave to the family. It dates back to 1842, to be more specific, on January 14. And this is the first page, where we see Testamento di Giovanni Cozza fu Alessio di Sanza. So will by Giovanni Cozza of the late Alessio from Sanza. There is a list of witnesses. It was usual there were witnesses, and the testament will was a kind of ritual. They repeat the same thing. And the notary, it's an important thing, the notary said that he went to visit Giovanni at his own house, and he found him in his room by the fireplace in good health of body and mind, as it appeared to me. He wished to dispose of his assets through his present non-cupative will. Non-cupative means it was orally stated. There was a notary, Giovanni Cozza, talked and orally told the notary all his desire and wishes. Let's see the other page. Okay. See, Michael said we are going to send this record anyway with the translation. I want to read the most important thing. First of all, I commend my soul to Almighty God, so that He may accept it in a state of grace. Secondly, I appoint and constitute as my heir all my available property by the way of and before all others, with a dispensation from the requirement of contribution, my son Alessio, with the obligation on his part to have the priest John Felice Donofrio celebrate, within a period of 6 years, 24 ducats worth of masses, at the rate of 2 carlini each, and to allocate 8 ducats for the soul of my late wife Mariangela Catania, 8 ducats for the soul of my late sister Maria, and 8 ducats for my own soul. In the absence of the said priest Donofrio, any other priest chosen by my son shall suffice. Okay. And I want to read alla nota della. There is an interesting note, a side note, the page 4, where Giovanni say, I, the testator, want to command that nothing shall be claimed for any claimed from my son Giuseppe regarding the household items and the other items that exist in my house at the time of my death, because he received his share when he separated from me. nor shall anything be claimed regarding the provisions existing both in the house and the countryside, as they result from the efforts of my son Alessio and his wife, as well as the animals kept under the care of my said son Alessio. These additional notes consist of 69 words, starting with I, the testator, want, and ending with Alessio.
My name is Giovanni Cozza, and I was born here, in Sanza, on March 1861. We are in the province of Salerno, in Campania. My father was Francesco, and my mother Serafina Ciorciari. On March 7th, I was baptized in the church of Santa Maria Assunta. The year of my birth coincided with the unification of Italy, and I learned that before that time, the economic situation of the farmers, of the paesani, as we are called, was already difficult, and it became even more complicated for us. The situation in the small towns was very uncomfortable. I remember that when I was a child, I used to go to work on foot in the fields with my father. Only those who were luckier used a donkey. There were no bathrooms in the houses, and you had to go and get water from the rivers or wash houses around the town. We lived in small and unhealthy houses. Sometimes the rooms were shared with the livestock. And we were subject to malnutrition and diseases, considering that we could only afford bread and legumes. We lived on a subsistence economy, and what was put on the table was the fruit of the cultivation of small plots of land, just enough to feed a few mouths. The roads in most of the villages in our region were not asphalted, and when it rained, they turned it up into mud paths. At that time, in our areas, there were small plots of lands mostly cultivated with wheat, with the population concentrated in rural villages. And in small towns like Sanza, justice was often administered in a very arbitrary and restrictive way. My mother said once to me that due to a small disagreement with a neighbor, she ended up in prison, where my brother Sabino was born in 1863, and where his poor health was also affected at the point that he died 19 months later on 7 October of the following year. Life was therefore not easy. For these and many other reasons, on a cold December day of 1886, I married a young local girl, and her name was Anna Felicia Curcio. In 1887, we decided to move to United States, stopping first in the cities where there were members of my family. My sister Annunziata, who lived in the Kings County, New York, and other members of the family were in New Jersey. And then we headed to Chicago, as my sister, Lucia Fortunata, already was living there. To me, it was like to enter in a new world I had never imagined. America, the promised land. When we got there, Chicago was well on its way to becoming the nation's second largest city, and in that moment it was a magnet for Italian and European immigrants. Just consider that a few years later than my arrival, by 1890, 40.5% of all residents of Cook County were foreign-born, and the Italian immigrants, when moved to Chicago, they took up residency on the near west side of the city, and this area became Chicago's Little Italy. A few years later, the World's Columbian Exposition of 1893 drew 20.5 million visitors, and all this created the best conditions and opportunities for a better life for many people living there. I knew how to read and write, and I also made my efforts to learn English while my wife was illiterate. By reading and talking a bit of the history of the Italian immigration, I discovered that most of them began trickling into Chicago in small numbers in the 1850s, working largely as merchants, vendors, barbers, and other artisans. By 1880, there were about 1,300 Italians in the city. My wife and I discovered that they had built a strong community there, having brought also their religious traditions. The first Italian Catholic church, in fact, the Church of the Assumption, was built in 1880, and the Scalabrinian Church of Santa Maria Incoronata, the patroness of Ricigliano, a town that is not far from Sanza, remained the focal center for the community that grew up on near West Side, in the area of Taylor Street, which contained about 1/3 of the city's Italians. That was a mixture of people from Naples, Salerno, Basilicata, and other Italian regions. We also found that we could count on the Italian communities of Chicago that were enriched by a phenomenon all too rare in our town of origin, the voluntary association. By 1920s, in addition to paesani-based mutual benefit societies, the Italians in Chicago had church and school-oriented clubs and sodalities that work at fundraising. I therefore recognized that there were the right conditions to start a new and prosperous life, and I immediately started working day by day to guarantee my wife, my 6 children, Serafina, Sam, Frank, Michele, Sarah, and Mike, a dignified life, a safe roof, a home of our own, bread on the table. Unfortunately, we lost Serafina, who died in early life, but all of them has been a gift for Anna and me, and I can say now that I have been a reason for pride and joy. With 6 children, there was no opportunity to get bored, and the house was always alive. And there are still things that I never understood about my children. For instance, I remember that Mike, the youngest, was the littlest one. And in the evening, when he undressed to go to sleep, he left his clothes scattered around. His socks on the bedside table, his sweater hanging on a handle, his trousers on a chair. I never knew if this guy would take off his clothes or explode. I moved, talking back to my work, working to the Chicago Rubber Company that manufactured rubber hoses. The job was good, but I spent long days and long hours at the factory. Winter was so cold in Chicago. There were times in which my wife used to rub my hands and feet before going to work in order to protect me from the intense cold. And sometimes I remember when I was back home at night having icicles on my beard and eyebrows. At that point, however, I had a secure salary. We also had a radio at home. The work was hard, and it was not always so simple to overcome the obstacles. Anna dedicated herself to managing our household and nurturing our family. Me and Anna endured many hardships while we tried to be good examples to the children we raised. We encouraged them to learn the language and ways of our new country, and to be honest and to respect the law. And so they were. Our unity and resilience, however, laid the foundation for a new chapter in our lives in the promised land of opportunity. Three years later, our arrival in Chicago, we were able to buy a house in the area of Chicago Ward 13, Reichert. And a few years later, we bought a new house and moved to a frame cottage on Reichert, which was later called Talman Avenue, where my dear children were raised. This place we could raise our goats, chickens, and cultivate our garden. So we were provided with eggs and milks and vegetables. With the time, we decided to convert from Catholicism to Presbyterianism, finding solace and support in this new faith. But we kept contact with Italians and the Italianness, our language, our family patterns, and our religious practices were retained in our old neighborhoods, even while they were Americanized, but our daily contact with non-Italians. We and our children attended the first Italian Presbyterian church, offering our religious service. We had a simple life and special time of entertainment where we were making wine or sausages, for instance. Thanksgiving and Christmas were always a special time for all the family, as we used to prepare special Italian dishes, and my favorite is still lasagna. And I have dinner all together in a room where a Christmas tree was laden with candles and chestnuts were roasted in the oven. There was always an atmosphere of unity and peaceful happiness that I still preserve deeply in my heart. The Bible says that a family is a gift of God, and God intended the families to be united. Leaving my family and my country of origin was hard, but if I go back in time with my memories, I can say that I'm very happy and proud of my family and of what I've done in my life until now. I can't deny it. It was hard, my dear, but I managed to conquer my place in a land where my children were also born and raised, who found their way and raised their family, dreaming of a better future. A time of sorrow came when my dear wife left me in 1925. It was a deep loss for me and for my children, but once again, the unity of the family helped us overcome that great pain too. She was buried in Hillside Cemetery, Cook County, Illinois. And I only ask all of you, when my time has come, to bury me next to her.